The next session, it is Educators' Readiness to Endo Digital Learning. It will be given by Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Professor Dr. Shrihari Honwad. We welcome you, sir. Thank you.
All the presentations which happened earlier, particularly that of Dr. Gankar ma'am, that I seem to have lost track of what I'm supposed to speak on. So powerful arguments on COVID impact, and now I'm going to take only a slice out of that entire impact and try to talk about educators' readiness to endo digital learning. Let me start by defining what we should mean by educators. Educators are obviously not the owners of higher education institutions, although they are educationists. Some of them are truly educationists and some of them would like to call themselves so. They are not even the leadership group which is represented here, because we are probably influencers and supporters, enablers in some form. The actual educators are the ones who are doing this wonderful job of educating the child inside the classroom and inside the laboratories. That's our teaching colleagues. I agree that we are all teachers, and once a teacher is lifelong a teacher, and a teacher is a lifelong student as well. And we have all had our own misgivings and enamored by the digital learning. Digital learning, it's looking as if it's come because of COVID. I'm sure it was knocking at our doors for almost a decade. Digital learning has been acknowledged, and in fact, the IITs, the NPTEL experiment. I mean, these are all examples of everybody taking note of this fact that something like this is going to come tomorrow, and that's going to be here. Nevertheless, before COVID, I think we had a lot of misgivings about digital learning. Let me just outline some of them. Foremost, I think, was the fear that the teacher would be rendered redundant if digital learning comes in place. I'm sure we are not talking about that so much. Second was the technologically challenged the need to skill teachers for digital learning aspects. Luckily, we have overcome that during the COVID by compulsion. The most skeptics amongst us, the most reluctant amongst us, has risen to the occasion, has taken charge of the challenge, and has been creative enough to create those learning experiences for the students. The third has been from both regulators as well as our thinkers, that there are so many areas where digital learning is not going to give you the exact experiential learning which would make a complete professional, particularly in engineering, medical and paramedical courses as well. Even that has been, we have seen, can be mitigated to a great extent. In fact, we have graduated at least 2 batches of engineering students without the practicals, the actual practicals, hands-on practicals, which remains a pain area. And I'm sure it will haunt these 2 batches for quite a bit of time, until and unless in their actual profession this experience is replicated in some form or the other, depending on the need, and companies which employ them will take care of that need, because we did not have enough time to recreate that experience. I'm not talking about the virtual labs or the labs where the computer engineers or electronics engineers could do those experiments practically the same way as they would do in a laboratory. For them, the experience has not been that bad. However, for say a civil engineering student who has to get his hands dirty and understand how a concrete mix is formed and how long it takes to set, what difficulties happen, which involve a certain amount of locomotory and other skills, which also need to be developed, or mechanical engineers who really need to operate those machines or build those machines and see how they work. I'm sure this has been a period of missed out learning experiences for the simple reason that we were not in a position to provide them even with projects where they could build models on their own and see for themselves. It was not easy and it was not accessible. There were other difficulties also, like Dr. Gaiker pointed out, that our rural students really did not enjoy the online learning as much as our urban students and well-to-do students or even middle-class students who had a very decent access not only to a smart machines, either a laptop or a smartphone, but also had access to good Wi-Fi services, which I'm sure is going to be the bottleneck, especially when it comes to implementing digital learning across the country. The quality of Wi-Fi services is going to be a very critical, and this is something. This is an infrastructure which needs to be developed across the country, which means it would have to be done by the government. And unlike in our cities where there is a paying capacity and a provider with technology who is willing to commercially exploit that and make a living out of it, this would not happen the same way in our rural areas. For that reason, I think this is going to be, in addition to the roads which are being built everywhere, fantastic network of both roads and waterways, other infrastructure. The electricity has reached in most parts of the country today. I am sure Wi-Fi services would also have to be considered as an essential service, and government will have to take up ensuring that these services reach out to every nook and corner, and the quality of these services is adequate, especially for our student population, and they are equipped with a very smart device. I'm sure each student can access a very affordable smart device in near future. A lot of companies are also trying to do that. I am aware of what Geo is trying to do for the rural students, including providing Wi-Fi facilities. I'm sure there will be many others who will come into the play, considering the large scale in which this operation needs to be done. I'm sure there will be those enablers which will help us push digital learning. Educators' readiness to endow digital learning still remains a big question mark, because a lot of us teachers who have had wonderful experiences standing on the podium in a classroom and giving those fantastic lectures, which we have received from the best of our teachers, and we have also experienced the elation which we feel when you have those 60 odd pairs of eyes looking at you, and and acknowledging your performance on the podium. That experience, if you're looking for in digital learning, I think that would be a big mistake. You will have to look for an alternative to this kind of an experience in case you need to change that mindset of yours, which really is against digital learning. There are still skeptics who feel that because we give online lectures, a lot of students, put themselves, stop their video, put themselves on mute, and they were not into the lectures. I think that was the biggest mistake many of us committed. That is to recreate a classroom atmosphere, replicate a classroom experience through online learning. I think online learning was our opportunity to change the way we taught, change the way we uh, helped our students learn. This was our big opportunity to flip the classroom, make learning materials available to our students. All of us teachers have been doing everywhere else that today our learners have access to much better material than our teachers have. I think we should take full advantage of that situation, identify good learning material interactively with the students, and use those classrooms, use those live sessions only to enable learning, only to ensure that learning has taken place. In case we want to have that experience, I'm sure we are, on one hand, we are looking at proctored examinations. I think we would be better off if we have proctored AI-enabled proctored environment for classrooms, wherein the enabled AI will give you an instant feedback as to how students are connected with what is being discussed, and you can change your gears and make sure that the effectiveness of the class improves. I think that is one support which we will look for from technologists in future. Virtual reality is another thing which is going to help us do that, but we must be prepared to create that software, the software which is deployed not in necessarily in a live fashion, but make it available to students that they experience. Then you get them back, have a live session where you discuss their experiences rather than expect that you will teach them and they will learn. I think this was our golden opportunity to move away from the fact, from our belief of, I prefer to call it the sage on stage mindset of our teachers. And this was our golden opportunity to become the guide on the side, wherein the student learns and you enable his learning. You help him pick up those learning skills, because at the end of the day, no matter how wonderful teacher you are, how wonderful lectures you give, finally the student retains what he goes back and studies, which means his own learning is responsible for his life. You take cognizance of that. You be on the helpful side for him, and make sure that you are in a position to implement digital learning, wherein it could happen in an asynchronous mode and a combination of synchronous and asynchronous modes. Second aspect of this I see is, once you look at NEP envisages so many things. Some of them are flexibility in learning. I think we as universities must go even one step ahead of learning. We are already talking of the students should be able to learn when they want, as they want, at whichever pace they want, and appear in examinations once again when they want and from where they want. I think digital learning is one way of trying to solve that problem. Am I running out of time?
No, sir. No, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. Please indicate if I'm running out of time.
We have sufficient time, sir.
I don't want to eat into.
We have another
okay.
20 minutes for your session.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm not sure I'll need all those, but I will try to complete my arguments before I stop. And as I was telling you about the NEP requirements, NEP also envisages a 50% GER ratio, which is fantastic to say on paper, but if it has to happen, the only way it can happen is if bandwidth of my teachers increases. A teacher today is able to cater to only 60 students. Even with online mechanisms, a teacher is able to look at, say, assignments of 60 students, do paper evaluations of 60 students, solve difficulties of some of those 60 students, and hope that other students also listen in and are helped by these difficulty solutions. I think if we want to increase that bandwidth of a teacher from 60 students to 600 students, AI ML enabled solutions are going to be absolutely essentials, because they will sort out some of the tedious and repetitive activities which the teachers do for every student. And a majority of these assignment evaluations, etc., can be done by intelligent systems, and the teacher can be given a continuous feedback as to, in case he wants to improve, he wants to change track, change the speed of the way a course is being delivered. I see that that is going to be a very important area sorry, where technological interventions are still pending, and they will improve educators' readiness to endow digital learning. Educators will be very happy to take up digital learning once they see that all this support is made available. All I'm saying is, give every teacher a dozen teaching assistants who will help him do a dozen virtual teaching assistants who will help him do all his activities, thereby help implement of NEP. The third thing which is bothering for most of us, in fact, in the state of Maharashtra, there has been some controversy around this, where some of the parties involved are insisting on an offline examination, and students, some of the students have gone on sort of a protest against that and want online educations only. This is perhaps because the students have found advantages in an online education, and many of our teachers rightfully are indicating that there is a lot of malpractice which is happening, which the online education cannot prevent. I think that should not become a new objection to digital learning. We teachers have used creative methods in teaching. I think we will have to use equally creative methods in examining. Our obsession with examinations can also be curbed a little. We have become, if you really look at how we were functioning before COVID, we have become an examination organization. Most of our large universities are doing nothing but examinations, and we expect that the examinations will improve the quality of our students. Thank you for muting yourself. We believe that it's the strictness of examination that improves the quality of our students. I don't think it may prove the quality of our students for sure, but it does not improve the quality of our students. And I'm sure in some sense, the way our examinations have become, it probably does not even ensure that our education is of that quality, because in 3 hours you cannot test what the student has learned in 40 lectures, followed by hopefully another 40 hours of learning by the student himself. I think time has come for us to move away from that obsession with examinations. We must give value as long as the learning is documented and the process of learning is of quality, and you are sure your students have learned, which most of our teachers are. By the end of the semesters, I'm sure you all know who your good students are, who your average students are, and who are the ones about whom you are worried that they may not do well in. Looking for replicating a classroom environment in a virtual mode, which again is not the correct way of doing this. Uh, However, if we flip the classroom, if we use active learning mechanisms, if we change the focus from teaching to enabling learning of the students, and if we change from our examinations from test of memory to test of actual application, by recreating something closer to the professional environment that he would face in his professional life, and that should be satisfactory enough, and that is what would improve the quality of our education also. I think I will stop here if Dr. Rane, you permit. If there is any clarification, further clarification you want, I'll give it immediately.
Yes,
I'm once again thankful for FELA for giving me this opportunity, not for my speech, but to listen to so many of my fellow vice chancellors who have such wonderful arguments, around what's been happening around COVID and how higher education institutions should interact and respond. Thank you very much. I stop
Thank you, sir.
here.
There are some queries. Sir, with reference to the
Yes,
national
please.
education policy, am I audible?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, with reference to the national education policy and the credit transfer as a part of it, how the digital learning will be useful for credit transfer activity to be organized by the various universities. That is one. And second question, with reference to the educators' readiness, key performance indicators, or what KPI you would like to propose so that the annual performance index of the teachers can be evaluated?
They are not going to change much if you ask me. What they would change in is a better way of better feedback of student performances can be obtained in digital learning, provided it's AI enabled, and we don't have to rely on a questionnaire feedback which we all look at these days, and we know that everybody has to take it with a pinch of salt. If the teacher is liberal in giving marks, quite often he seems to receive a good feedback and otherwise, but those things will disappear, and we can give adequate weightage for the student feedback or the learning feedback which can be captured by data analysis on a digital learning platform. That would change the way the amount of time the teacher needs to spend on building up KPIs on the classroom front. But at the same time, all his efforts in creating creative lectures and things would go a long way in adding to his. And I have a feeling he would be having, his bandwidth would increase, and he will have a lot more time to do the research, which will continue to be, a breadwinner for him when it comes to KPIs. I mean, unless you do your research, you are not an active learner. If you're not an active learner, if you're not curious about new things, how can you be a good teacher? I think from NEP point of view, the outcomes will get captured with much less bias is what I would expect, and the amount of time. I mean, today teacher has to spend sometimes a couple of days in filling up the KPI form itself. I'm sure he will not have to do that. He will probably get a pre-filled form which he will just verify and submit, and there would be a lot more transparency in the way we are able to appraise teachers. From NEP point of view, the quality of learning would be easily capturable, provided we do every aspect of digital learning which I talked about, and I'm sure there are many other aspects which I missed, which will come in the next few sessions. We will be in a position to continuously monitor that and improve continuously the learning of our students. I think that would be a big boon. And the main motto of NEP is that focus on outcomes, and it's outcomes which can be captured very well, which can be monitored very well in a digital environment. And for that outcome, the kind of softwares, the kind of quick change we can implement, it can happen in a digital learning much faster than it can happen in a an environment where you really need to go back and deliver it in a classroom, which you get only say 3 classes every week. So you're time bound. And in a digital environment, you can push it anytime, any amount of it, and expect students to modify their learning habits. That's my take.
Thank you.